I would like to say to my brothers and sisters, Dinestele, I give you an Ethiopian greeting from most of the cultures that occupy that land. When Brother Brath make reference to my wife, Gertrude, she was temporarily out of the room, so I think I will introduce you to her again. So, with the real Mrs. Ben-Jochannan, please stand. I'm traveling tonight with a very good friend of mine, and I know most of you would be lost for word when I introduce him and his title. The Reverend Sam Brown is a friend of mine and a Baptist minister. Sam Brown. He's doing his stuff in the vineyards of Queens, way out in Long Island. And you know, being a friend of mine, he's catching hell in the pulpit. What I'm doing now, after 53 years, starting in 1939, isn't accidental, and at the same time, I did not plan it this way. I was warned by my father that what I was doing as a youngster could only result in one of two things. And my father then told me, you don't take a job if you're going to be a gambler. There is no successful gambler working. If you're a gambler, you must spend all of your time to understand the tricks and charnies of gambling. You can't waste time and working. Otherwise, you're fooling yourself. So when I started, didn't understand where I was going, I took a career of civil engineering. That hadn't given me what I was looking for in my inner self, and at the time I wasn't even conscious of it. I turned to anthropology, cultural anthropology. That still did not meet my need, and I went into Moorish history. None of these things satisfied my need, and then I went to my father's first profession, law. Neither of these things satisfied my inner need, but they gave me a preparation in order to fight what was to come way up the road. And so it is that I had a last qualification to make. And that was to decide whether I was going towards money or whether I was going towards a struggle. And probably at the time when I started, I probably was not too clear on which way I had to go. So like any other young man, there were times in my youth when I too saw the flashiness of a car and thought that it meant something other than transportation. Clothing and everything else. And I made quite a few mistakes in those days. But things start to gel when I realized there was a sharp distinction between going towards wealth and going towards a peace of mind. And quite early I make the decision that sometimes you have to take the route of the peace of mind, but the peace of mind did not necessarily mean the comfort of not paining. To have the peace of mind meant to go to jail, it meant to be spat at and on, it meant to be shot fired to you, your car attacked, your person, and family problems. But the peace of mind came that while you were in jail, you could sleep, unless they were purposely at the time harassing you physically. And I had all of those experiences. The ultimate and last point of this came in the entire month of August with the Egyptian experience I had, because the Egyptian government and many of its officials anticipated my mind, though my actions did not give away my mind. The Egyptian government summarized, or members within it summarized, that my total behavior from 1939 until 1991 was because of my commitment to my people, the Nubians. And that they felt that anyone dedicated so to their people will probably do anything in that effort to free their people. And so when it was that the struggle came for an Arab Egyptian trying to wrest from me that dream I had in placing Nubia again to the world by establishing this Nubian festival, which may have sounded good and playful, pleasureful, and everything like that, a holiday in the stars, so to speak, that they saw in this a totally different thing, which it was. They saw in this an attempt to bring to the world, and on the world scale internationally, the Nubian people highlights as those of Egypt. True, they were. But the charges against me for how this was to come about was totally erroneous, and the persons who plotted this, in conjunction with international bodies, were fighting against me at that point, not as Yosef Ben-Jochannan. I have been barred from countries before. I have been placed in jail by countries that have been escorted back to the airport by the head of state of St. Kitts, Bradshaw. So I had known all of these experiences and knew they would come from different sources for different reasons. But what was the primary reason that I had reached this point? So I never asked, why me? I never asked the question, and I will never ask the question, why not me? For what I was engaged in doing and will be continuing to do when I return to Egypt on the 19th of October cannot be stopped. And someone asks, how you mean it can't be stopped? You're a human being, you could die like anybody else. Well, if I die, I will die either by a gun, a knife, or just calmly die in some black woman's hands. I mean, arms. God should know about that, so. But nevertheless, I will die. And someday must die, based upon what I'm seeing. But I will continue to the last of the breath to be struggling towards Nubia. And so with that, I made it possible that money never played an important part, though it is important. The pursuit of it is very difficult, and at times it makes it uneasy for me to perform what I have to perform. But what is it? In 1936, and then subsequently in 39, when I made my first move in terms of Egypt, then I started what happened to me in August. We expect that only when we do things momentarily in one day, the reaction to what we have done just a few minutes prior to what comes down on us, we feel is that the thing that actually we're paying for. No. What happened to me in August 1991 began in 1939, and this was the response to what I did then. Between 1939 and 1991, what happened was the intensity of what I had begun in 1939. And because I knew it, when I went to Papua New Guinea, arrived in Papua New Guinea with $19 in my pocket, not knowing where I'm going, it didn't bother me, because when I was assured that 99% of the population looked like me, I knew I didn't need more than $19. I didn't know I didn't need $19. Because I knew what I had to do to live among them people. I had certain skills. I had the skill of law, the skill of engineering, and the skill of historical research. And there's no way that I could make contact with anyone there and we could communicate that I would need bread to eat. Since it is that my objectivity was always the African people. When I was teaching at Columbia University, I'm going to go into history, but this is important to understand me. I was simultaneously lecturing 2 blocks from here, exactly, on the southwest corner of 125th Street, right in front of the chock full of nuts. I would come down from Teachers College, where I was teaching 2 courses, to 125th Street to the University of Hard Knocks. And there I took all kind of abuse because my language was not proper. I did not know to speak to my brothers and my sisters. I too spoke with long syllabic words. I was the epitome of a British house slave. All my words were so properly spoken, and sometimes I had to trouble over my accent and the words to get to my people who had not heard a word I was saying, until I started to learn the word motherfucker. When I learned to say that and to speak it with all the strength and vigor, as against a gentleman who mates with his partner, I had no one to understand me. And then I learned something in the Christian church. I spoke the language of the people. Some of you can't stand it, of course, as the people, but for the first time I was able to communicate with all of my people, those in the big house and those on the plantation. Previous to that, I was communicating solely with the big house. And the big house could not hear me because what I had to say was not for the big house. What I had to say was for the audience here and the rest of the audience like you. I wanted to bring what I saw in Egypt to the average African man, woman, and child, because I know that what I had was a liberating device. I had seen my people sitting and praying for a wife or a husband, sitting and praying for a fur coat or a Mercedes-Benz, sitting and praying for all kind of frivolous nonsense, carrying it to the door of the Lord and leaving it there on the doorstep, coming back 2 weeks later and there it still was on the doorstep. And I realized that the answer, though theosophy and religion has its value, it is not the way with it all. For I realized that the minister would be never, if going to the Lord in prayer was really the thing, hardly a minister would have been in the pulpit. I knew all that. I knew that what my people believed in was what Carter G. Woodson admonished us not to go in, because it resulted in what he said at that time, the miseducation of the Negro. Marcus Messiah Garvey, whose son is here with us, one of the two, was a man who I looked at with a reverence not less than my own biological father. And I remember in his teachings way down there when I grew up in the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, he asked the question, what is an education? For what purpose? He said, it's not necessarily what you take in. For more than often, you will have to let that same thing out. I'm paraphrasing, of course. And it had an impact on me. And what was the impact then? Was to have a knowledge, to know something, to see your people struggling for that knowledge, which is theirs, to see them being Pavlov eyes, like Pavlov dog, and not being able to recognize that we are going down the aisle. First thing was to make my people, to free them from the Adam and Eve syndrome, free them from the guilt feeling, guilt symptom of being responsible and something being diabolically wrong for having a child without a piece of paper from City Hall. Having them free from calling themselves such as black sheep of the family, when this should be the proud point of the black family, it was denigrating to the family. To speak of everything and be afraid of it, the blackness of the night, and there's more blackness than there is light. To be afraid of your own skin, and to be shocked by the mirror when the mirror revealed it. All these things I saw without coming out and speaking on the issue per se. It is at that time that I equally came to the United States and met with an older boy. You would not think that we were ever boys. I met with a fellow from Georgia, Little Bubba Clark, a little bit older than I am. And so when we meet any place, I always have to give him first consideration. But we met in the Schomburg, and I see a lady sitting down right on my right-hand side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 7 rows back, who was a mentor. And we don't speak about mentors, but the mentors have the point in helping to mold us. And I was partly molded by this woman, Miss Hudson, sitting right there. Will you stand up, Miss Hudson? Take a bow, take a bow. No, take a bow, you gotta take a bow. Take a bow. Yeah. I had to, because you claim how beautiful the Schomburg is, and that's what I'm talking about. What a beautiful place, what an intellectual place, everything about it. And of course, we give honor to Brother Otto Lanza Schomburg and others. But I am a living witness for the many, many nights till 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, coming back from meeting with that young lady there, going home by herself towards the Hudson River, trying to get what you now got there. So I think that the old building, at least the old building, should carry Gina Hudson's name. And let me go into what it is that was so revealing and changing in me as a young man, and subsequently now as an approaching old man. It was that which Garvey was speaking about, I had discovered. It was no longer theory when he said the tricolors of Africa, which you don't even use no more. You talk about liberation flag. Garvey never spoke anything about no liberation flag. It was the red, black, and green trimmed in gold. And when I went in the tombs and temples of Egypt and saw the red, black, and green, 5,000 years before Jesus, when I went there in tombs and saw red, white, and blue, also as another symbol in ancient Egypt. Having seen these also in Sudan and Ethiopia, I'm going up, back up country, up south. I then was shocked. A man who had himself not gone physically to any part of the African continent, but totally spiritual transmission. It is then that when I got in the tomb of Setaiwan, at the temple of Setaiwan, at a place called Abydos, and realized that our people had been using this place as a holy land. There was no God by the name of Jehovah yet when our people were using it as a holy land. Therefore, of course, there was no Abraham yet, and there was no Moses to lead anyone from any place yet. There was no Jerusalem. And of course, Jesus didn't exist. Not on the tongue of anyone. No one knew the name. And it was the Holy Land of my people. And there was no Bethlehem. No Allah existed. And therefore no Muhammad ibn Abdullah. And therefore no Mecca. Not even Medina. And then I further started to think beyond doing just the research. And other things started to come to me, and another damning thing came to me was the concept of the Immaculate Conception. As I walked through that temple and stumbled into the room and looked and see an erected penis perpendicular to the body of the image of the person being there. And by that time, knowing to read enough to understand what was going on in this, I noticed it was the resurrection. And I thought for the longest while when I heard that the resurrection of Jesus was a spiritual resurrection. It has nothing to do with something physical. But here was a right of Cyrus with both a spiritual and a physical resurrection. And the symbol of resurrection was the penis of a man, that the ancient Africans were not afraid to use their sexual organ symbolically to express point. I had seen this in other temples as I looked at goddess Mut, stripped naked, and the text saying, goddess Nut, exposing heaven to the world, her vagina. And I had heard of the word heaven, and I was taught to look up in the sky, especially when the big clouds pass. I had been in heaven. I had come out of heaven one day on December 31st, and didn't even know I'd been in heaven. Because everybody was telling me, it's not there. I lay down with it. I had learned to even go back in it. And I was ashamed to know that millions of brothers couldn't recognize heaven, and that's why they were beating it with clubs, kicking heaven full of new birth. Couldn't even recognize heaven. And I'd even call the products of heaven bastard, illegitimate, and so forth. This kind of news had to be told. But who's going to listen? Who's going to listen when they are already reached the epitome of what my brother had said in the miseducation of the Negro? Further, as I examine the whole basis for our living, understanding the concept of spirituality, understanding for the first time that our people bring to the world the concept of a soul, but not only a soul, the concept of the law of balance, the law of opposites. That law was fundamental and never once could be upset. Our people had even carried into the concept of balance the law of opposite, and showed that just like we are seeing melanin today, our people had seen it way back there in the concept of balance. It was hard to put these things I was now seeing as my pick and shovel dug into the earth and the blisters came. There was no time to worry about the blisters, because the information that was being revealed was something that I found to be my greatest difficulty. Because what now that I've got this, who am I going to tell that can understand me? Can I tell my mother? No. She was a midwife and should have, but her background, her training. Could I tell my father? No. Though he encouraged me, because neither of the two could understand because of the background. How now would I tell my people? I realized that when I went to the street in Harlem, it was not the first time, because in Puerto Rico, I had gone to the street with Don Albizu Campo. I had been in jail in 1935 with the black shirts in Puerto Rico at the university. I had gone to the street to tell people whatever way, because I was not interested in the title intellectual. Today, when people condemn me for not being an intellectual of the PhD type, They think that they're bothering me. They don't. I've given up. I surrendered the name last Saturday before last at my lecture at First World. I gave it back. I turned it back. I don't need the damn thing. I didn't need it then. But I needed it. I couldn't go in certain places, my brother and sister. Hadn't I used that white man's certification, I would not have been able to get in. I no longer need it. But I refuse to use it on what I consider the epitome of the black man and particularly the black woman's value. Never did I put the PhD on my works because I refuse to let the white man certify what I am doing. And thus I understand what Brother Chancellor evaded him. I understood because I've been there and I understand the browning of my people or the lightning of my people. I could look at my mother and see it. And I realized that I can't blame my people for their browning. Therefore, the light one among my people and the dark one among my people had to be treated equally because they were not responsible for what happened to them by the Arab slave trade or the European slave trade. It is that, because of that, I was able to understand the invasion of the first part of Africa, and that is the northeast section of Africa, now called by some the Middle East. I understood what happened as the Hyksos, the first foreign people to come in our land, came in to plunder, no different than the current foreigners in the same land plundering today. I understood it. You know, to work and just put dates and events and figures, and you said, I said research, without understanding, without feeling, without seeing. You can do that very easily. You could do that easily and go put down the pen in the afternoon or the typewriter, go down the corner, take a shot of anything, higher, lower, in betweener, or anything like that, and don't take a plane to Haiti and say, I had a beautiful time in squalor, take a plane to Georgia or something and have a beautiful time and come back mesmerized with alcohol in the plane, flying higher than the plane. You can do that if you do the research, but the research means nothing to you personally. It is thus that when I went in the tomb of Ramesses VI in particular, and looked at the black woman up in the ceiling, I could turn my mind to New York, to St. Croix, Puerto Rico, and say, it can't be the same woman, because this woman is over the head of Ramesses VI. She is shown naked, back to back. I thought of the Caribbean Calypso song, back to back. You know what it is. And I'm saying, is the picture of the black woman up there with the stars and the moons on her body? The brother put it up there. Black men, artists, put her as heaven. But black men in Harlem and 125th Street had his foot in black women behind and their guts. Is it the same black man that put it in there? What had happened to us in the transition between the Nile Valley, the slave ships, the crossing of the ocean, and our sojourn in the Caribbean, and then after the Caribbean, coming up here in 19 or 20 in Jamestown, Virginia. What else was to be learned was all of these concepts of the Ba and the Ka, the spirituality. To understand that our people, call them Egyptians, Nubians, Meroites, any name you want to call them, even nigger if it feels you better, because your sons and daughters just calling everybody nigger in the subway and every place. That too had to be put in context. It could not be that the Hyksos did this, and then come the Assyrians and we kicked them out with Ashurbanipal. And then came back, after that, came the Persians, and we kicked them out in 525. And then they come for the first time the Europeans. By now the Europeans came out the cave. We should have left them there to freeze. Being nice, you relieve a man. You say, if a man is drinking beer, and all of a sudden you buy him champagne, he had no tune-up between beer and champagne, and you let him from cheap beer to Moet, $150 a bottle, it's going to make him sick. You have to put a little bit of Moet in the beer, and then add it, so you can get the beer taste, the champagne taste. Otherwise, you haven't done him any favor. You kill the man. So I had to find the transition between what I was reading here and what I could bring to my people. And it still hasn't been done, because it's sad to know that even in 1991, we are having a conference to discuss, is Egypt in Africa? And all the intellectuals going to discard it. And then they're going to have the black authority of Egyptology, Barnell from Cornell University, a man I couldn't keep from out of my classroom, pimping on everything I was teaching. But this is it, because what it means, it meant that the sunlight, just the mere sunlight, the recording of that sunlight, which our people had used and found out that they could record the hours and establish the hours of day, establish the value of a week and a month and etc., that our people had found the way to live, even if, in fact, simultaneously or not, there were a people called Caucasian and even Semites, Tomites too. Even if there were such an incident, that it was our people, whether or not bestowed by the power of the deity, she and he. I got to repeat that one, because when you say, God may he, she, or God may she, he. Because I stopped saying God, he, long ago. Because I went to the labor room. As a matter of fact, in my living room, I saw my first child born. And I'm not going to say God, he, no more. Because God, Junior, he, was watching the action. But it was God, she, who was putting out the baby. And I had seen it in Egypt. I had seen it with Goddess Hathor. I had seen it with Goddess Nut and Mut. I had seen it as the Immaculate Conception came forward. I had seen it with the opposite, the struggle, the concept of the struggle of man, with Osiris being killed by his brother Set Typhon, and the revenge of that by his son Horus. And the result of struggling for justice, though just and fighting on the side of the deity let Horus lose his left eye. That even I had seen the concept of justice against an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth that the Jews had copied. I can get endorsed as another anti-Semite. But it's all right. It's good to be a Semitic anti-Semite. Because I got to say, when the Grand Rabbi from Poland stopped being a Caucasian to become a Semite, as against me, I'm ready to have another debate with another rabbi anytime. What it means then, and Brother Lambert, give me the site when it's time, because I'm thinking about time now. What it means was to bring the people on the site. It was not enough to come to 125th Street and speak about it, because people couldn't conceive of this. How can you conceive of a black woman who had gone through the Immaculate Conception process, giving birth to her child, a virgin-born child, with Michelangelo's cousin in your living room or your bedroom or your child? It was not enough. I could not penetrate that image. I was fighting against every media that you could think of. And one little voice on 125th Street. The device was then, let me carry you there. First I felt at that time that the black, quote-unquote, intellectual would want to pass it on, and found that he had no idea, because he had to wait until the cracker said, I'm going to publish you. But first I'm going to edit you so that your work is meaningless. I had to bring you to drop that black intellectual, to go, and the black intellectual now say that I can't write. I am redundant. I don't know how he found that out, because in my book I place, I am being redundant. I mean, I don't know that anybody could have missed the point. The first book I published, I said, I am going to be redundant. I said, I am speaking about Egypt, Sais, Kemet, Tamari, and give you the different names of Egypt. I'm speaking about Africa, Al-Kebulan, Ortega, Hesperia, same name, put it in bracket so you could know. You know why I'm doing it? I was doing to you what the minister does to you just before the collection takes place. I was saying to you, and God did it. Yes, and God did. Yes, God did it. You see, that's what I was doing to you. I was driving it into your head so that you can't forget it. So when I put the word and put it 50 different ways in one sentence, people say, but I can't read the book. Easy, I can't. I got to take a time when I read a page, I got to go back. I want you to go back to read the damn thing. I had to send you back. You had this white Mary from Rome. And I had to send you back to the black Madonna child. And when you turned the page and got 3 pages and said, well, wait a minute, I don't want to forget this black Madonna, go back, reference. Back to Mary, go back to Isis. Go back and look at Isis. I don't want you to miss the resurrection. Go back and see Min. Now I miss the resurrection. Even if I didn't show Osiris, I'm going to show you a longer penis. A real whopper. So I carry you back. So I carry you back to see God Min, the God of fertility. so that when you and your man get naked, that neither of you are ashamed of the other, that you got nothing to hide, because some of you get married, you do all the necessary things down at City Hall, blood tests turn out to be good, you bypass AIDS, and yet when you get to the bed, you can't take off your clothes in front of each other. I am redundant. I don't know how he found that out, because in my book I place, I am being redundant. I mean, I don't know that anybody could have missed the point. The first book I published, I said, I am going to be redundant. I said, I am speaking about Egypt, Sais, Kemet, Tamari, and give you the different names of Egypt. I'm speaking about Africa, Al-Kebulan, Ortega, Hesperia, same name, put it in bracket so you could know. You know why I'm doing it? I was doing to you what the minister does to you just before the collection takes place. I was saying to you, and God did it. Yes, and God did it. Yes, God did it. You see, that's what I was doing to you. I was driving it into your head so that you can't forget it. So when I put the word and put it 50 different ways in one sentence, people say, but I can't read the book easy, I can't, I gotta take a time when I read a page, I gotta go back. I want you to go back to read the damn page. I had to send you back. You had this white Mary from Rome. And I had to send you back to the black Madonna child. And when you turn the page and got 3 pages and said, well, wait a minute, I don't want to forget this black Madonna. Go back, reference. Back to me, go back to Isis. Go back and look at Isis. I don't want you to miss the resurrection. Go back and see Min. Now I miss the resurrection. Even if I didn't show Osiris, I'm going to show you a longer penis. A real whopper. So I carry you back. So I carry you back to see God Min, the God of fertility, so that when you and your man get naked, that neither of you are ashamed of the other, that you got nothing to hide, because some of you get married, you do all the necessary things down at City Hall, blood tests turn out to be good, you bypass AIDS, and yet when you get to the bed, you can't take off your clothes in front of each other. So I had to remove that fear, because that fear went in your own condemnation of your own child. I had to relieve your mind to let you know that if you want to find God, it is a penis and a vagina. That's God. If you think I'm wrong, try to get you a child without it. Try to make a baby with mud and blow some snot. And then try to make it with a penis and a vagina. I congratulate you for the result. That's it. That's the difference in what I was doing. So when I read Pepe II in the book of Coming Forth by Day and by Night, that heaven is between the legs of a woman, I had to change that slightly. I had to say heaven is between the legs of a black woman. Yeah. Egypt made me a man. It turned me around the Nile River and the valley, from Ethiopia and down. And then I had to look for the source, because everything points to me that it isn't from here. That when the Europeans come for the first time, the Greeks being the first one of them, that they didn't understand what they were seeing. I look at the ink and noticed that everywhere on the Nile I went, it led me back upstream. And as I looked and the examples of the artifacts coming from different places, I found that it's among the Twa and the Hutu, which you call the Pygmies, the smallest of our people, that symbol was first used. Then I understood. But later I was to be reading and found the papyrus of Hunefa, which stated emphatically that leave no doubt in my mind who was the Egyptians. It leave no doubt in my mind the doubt that Diane Ravage, Alfred Levine, and Arthur Schlitznger et al. And sorry, Mayor Dinkenstein. Could not understand. You see what it says? Hunefa is writing, we came from the beginning of the Nile, where God happy dwells, at the foothill of the mountain of the moon. There was nothing to debate. I don't need Herodotus to tell me what Hunefa was saying. Hunefa was quite specific. He was speaking about his fellow Egyptian, his fellow priests, that we had come from the beginning of the Nile. So all I had to do is use my engineering skill now and go to the map and find the beginning of the Nile. I didn't need Burton to lie and say he found the source of the Nile. Hunefa had already told me what the source of the Nile is. And when I looked at the source, I found it was not only one source, there were three sources. Two of them in the highlands of Ethiopia, one of them in Uganda. The source of the White Nile being in Uganda at Mwanza Nyanza, the British one time called it Victoria. How are you going to name a lake for a sick-ass white woman? If you had put Victoria in the lake, it would have contaminated all the water. Here's a woman that bragged. This woman bragged she was the cleanest woman in Europe. In 1 year, she had taken a bath. The source of the Blue Nile being Lake Tana and the Atbara River. Those were the sources of the Nile. So Hunefa had already told me that the Egyptians were Central East Africans. So I wasn't surprised that there would be a Diane Ravage to fight me about it, because Diane Ravage wants to come from Poland, and that's not the source of the beginning of the Nile. She wants to come from Poland and Russia and France and England and wherever else to Egypt and lie. Lie like the rabbis lie, the black ones too, and say to me that they had something to do with the building of the pyramid. Ed Koch went there and lied the same way. Begin went there and lied the same way. They picked the largest of the pyramids to lie on. Adam and Eve wasn't in the picture when the pyramids were built, especially those at Giza, the largest one. They were built in the 4th and 6th dynasty. The first Jew, Abraham, was not born until the 13th dynasty. How are you going to build a pyramid for Abraham? Yeah, we have to make it clear. What Jeffries have done is fantastic, but Diane Ravage haven't heard anything yet. 10 more years, and her degree in humanities and social science will be debunked. She too will have to go back to school. That's what she's afraid of. That's what she's afraid of. Because we're going to have to talk about the illicit part of history, the distortion and plagiarization in the Bible that created a Moses when there were none. Diane is afraid that no longer her lie about Adam and Eve is going to be valid. She's afraid that the records will show everywhere there was no Joseph and Potiphar. There's no record of a Potiphar prime minister anywhere in Egypt. She's afraid that she's going to have to give back the 10 Commandments and she would not be chosen anymore. Yes, she is a Texas Jew. She's a Jew. She was born in Texas. She's a Texas Jew. What is it she's afraid of now? What is it is she teaching at Columbia University? Isn't she teaching what I'm teaching? Is she teaching there that the Jews built the pyramids when in fact there were no Jews? The first pyramid was built in the 3rd dynasty. It is. And the last pyramid was built in the 12th dynasty. What is important, I'm saying, is not that you know that it happened. You must be able to correlate it with what's going on right now. It would be folly for me to go to Egypt for 50 odd years, dealing with these perspectives, and come back beating my woman in 135th Street. It would be folly for me to go to Egypt and see this thing and come back and don't give a dime to my child to eat the bread. It is not good enough to read it, sing about it, dance around it, and don't act it. Not good enough. Yes, what we were talking, you see, I didn't have to go step by step, because what I've spoken of, unless by reference, I will not be speaking about Greece or Rome. I will not meet yet the Alpha Dappa Lappa fraternity or the sorority. They do not exist. I will not meet the Freemasons if it's Prince Hall or Who Hall. I would not have met the daughters of whatever ISIS yet. I spoke all that time, and I'm still in the Grand Lodge of Saqqara. I have not come to the Grand Lodge of Waset, which you call Luxor yet. Not gone to the 2nd degree, much less 40 years of my education. You see, I am still a novice. I've just been circumcised at age 7 before they had to bring down JC. That's Jesus Christ. To teach him what his brothers had so he could go back and take aromatics and bring people out of coma. Bring Lazarus out of a coma. If he was dead, he would have been buried, the turkey. He brought him out of a coma. They didn't know the difference between death and a coma. And in his home, Jesus had to come home among his people where Mama had run and bring him first to hide. That's not blood. How the hell you got Jesus blue eye with golden locks in a bunch of Harlemites? And George Bush sent the army in spite of Colin Powell. Sent to find this blonde baby in the midst of the Harlemites and can't find him. Somebody needed glasses, or Jesus was a chameleon. He turned when he wanted. No. And he didn't even finish the course. It's 40 years of study. And he didn't make 30, he just barely made 33. Had some more work to do. Daddy said, come home, boy. Come home. You ain't touched no sister yet. You ain't helping the population. Come home. Didn't you see those pictures that Ben is looking at? Didn't you see Goddess Nut, how sweet that sister looked? Didn't you see heaven glowing in front of your face, boy? 33 years, boy. You're at the wedding and you ain't doing nothing yet. Daddy said, come home, come home. You got to understand what they say on the wall. Come home, yes, come home. Come home to the motherland. Come home to Egypt. Come to the Nile. I stood in the Nile. I didn't. John Clark, Bubba Clark was taking care of everywhere else over there in the West Coast. And here, he was taking care of the Mississippi, the Missouri, the Niger, because there's so much to take care on the Nile. When you're on the Nile working, you're talking about 82 pyramids in Egypt and 37 in Sudan. When you're on the Nile, you're talking about going into the temple to find the engineering solutions that man made, even the Nile meter, to be able to stay 3,000 miles from Ethiopia and tell when the lake went up 1 inch without guessing and calling and hocus pocus by scientific instruments that was the state of the art of its time. You are talking about being where mathematics was first used. When I carry you to the Holy of Holies in Karnak Temple, Karnak proper name is Warit, and show you how man started to count with 1 all the way up to million. They said the African, they have the 0. How we wrote 1 million then? How we wrote 1 million? Oh yes, and you come with your camera and you take in the picture. Yeah, then we had been there in Saqqara, and we have already dealt with putting 2 foreign metals together, putting gold and silver and blending it to make the capstone for the pyramids as well as the obelisk. Yes, you knew that when you went to Washington, D.C. and looked at Washington's penis, which Martha couldn't enjoy. I don't know why he put it there. It was useless. But you didn't know, he didn't know that when he put that reinforced concrete thing up there, that he was copying Osiris' penis that had been cut off by his brother Typhon in a war between 2 brothers thousands of years before Cain killed Abel. You see why Diane is mad? Because the lies by Jewish rabbis and teachers will have to come out in the curriculum of inclusion. The question is, are the brothers and sisters working in the curriculum of inclusion going to say that the Cain and Abel being the first murder is nothing but a lie, and put the true story where it came from? That's going to be the test. What is going in to the curriculum of inclusion? That's the way. You see, it's a new day coming. You see, when the old folks said a new day coming, fairly well, fairly well. Oh yeah. You see, you think that they were just jumping, so you stop singing. A new day coming very well, because that was too black, too African. So you had to come with a spiritual. No, that'd have been good. But you drop the spiritual as you reach the front door. and you turn it into the gospel that said, oh Lord, I ain't got no problem, that's a goddamn lie. You got problems, you got roaches, you got the rent. You got a junkie fallout, your son just gone to jail. You just heard that your son OD. Your daughter got pregnant and the guy ran away. How the hell you mean you don't have no problem? As long as you got Jesus. You got Jesus and you got a whole lot of problems. No, let's deal it. Let's deal with the reality. Look at Jesus in the spiritual sense. If you believe in me and on me, and you can't walk, I'll make you walk. You don't need a reverend, I could do it. But the reverend specializes in it. But hold on me and believe on me, and I'll make you walk. Not only Jesus, he went the same place to learn it where I went to learn it. He went home. That's why he spent them 20 years home, on the Nile and the Grand Lodge at the master teachers. I'm going to wind it down because you know that I'm still human. And I had a stroke about 6 years ago, so I'm not going to get myself in stroke condition. But it get good. The old-time religion, when it get to you, right, Reverend Brown? I got Reverend Brown. Boy, it make you feel like a good black sister. You know, you get in the clinch there, you hug each other, and she said, tell me you love me. And you know you love her, but at that moment, you got the time with no theories. Heaven is boiling up and all that good feeling. You know when that black sister kiss you, man, I tell you, Diane Rabbit and all of them, and Bob Grant think that I'm ugly. They call me Jungle Bunny and all kind of things. They don't know. Ask a black sister what a nice, sweet, thick lips could do to your soul. Boy. Yeah, boy, when one of them lips hit you, the suction from those lips. I have to pray when I say that, good Lord, I thank you for these lips. The Lord must have known what he was doing when he put lips on brothers. Lord had to know what he was doing when he makes sisters with them sweet, luscious titties. And the Lord, oh man, brother, come unto the Lord and glorify the sisters. Talk to the Lord and tell the Lord, Lord, when you make black woman, you outdid yourself, Lord. Yeah, that's why I went down there in Egypt land. I went down there to learn the sciences of the world and the liberal arts. But most of all, I learned the value of my mother, the value of my woman, the value of my daughters, the value of my sisters. I learned to look up, down, or sideways to that African woman and say, good Lord, what would have happened if you weren't here?
Yosef Ben-Jochannan. At this particular time, first of all, before we don't go, hold your position because you want to see what we're getting ready to do right now. But there's a Ford Tempo HUM 955 and 87 Saab A2B 106. You had to move it. Dr. Ben has talked about our history for many years. But he's also been a person that has talked very much about the history of many people, and particularly of the indigenous population of the Americas. For many years, the Native Americans, for lack of a better term, have listened to Dr. Ben also, and have always wanted to bestow upon him their acknowledgement of what he has actually done in talking about the history of mankind. And at this particular time, since we have Dr. Ben here, and we always try to deal with a situation that is a little bit more than the ordinary, Sister Asiba Tubahachi told me that for some time they had been trying to do something for Dr. Ben. And at this particular time, Sister Asiba, who is from the Matinacock people of Long Island, what is called Long Island, will present Dr. Ben with a ceremonial blanket, or a blanket. And she will tell you about, the character, the history, and the measure of this particular bestowment. Will you please welcome Sister Asiba Tubahachi.
It took quite a while before I was able to catch up with him. I guess I kind of took for granted how easy he came to our assistance when I just said, help. We were not a well-known nation of people. In fact, we were called extinct. So there was nothing for him to gain by responding when I simply said, please help us. I have a double mission. First of all, to properly thank and to acknowledge the courage and the unconditional love of sovereignty of this man. The second mission is to leave testimony with you on the tapes wherever to all those who may hear that African men who assert sovereignty and liberation are obsessed with only themselves, and that the struggle is one-sided, and that say that African people can do no wrong, because that's not what happened. And I'm talking 14 years ago. A lot of anti-talk has been going around, anti-Semitism, anti-white, anti-American, all that stuff. I think you have to kind of understand a little background before you understand this thank you completely. Turn your minds back to 1976, bicentennial time, when Roots came out. Everybody was all excited about a slave, slavery. Everybody wanted to erect monuments, all excited. People who wanted to get all kinds of emotional, junky stuff off were all hyped up about slavery. What was about to happen is, you see, it's important to understand that the Matinacock Nation is presumed extinct. That means we're supposed to not exist anymore. Myself included believe that. It worked. So when I was asking him for help I knew my relatives were getting sick because landmarkers were coming to the last stretch of land that my relatives were still on and my ancestors had, and they were calling it a landmark for slavery. I had all kinds of choked up feelings because it wasn't hype, it wasn't the fashion, it wasn't the style to say anything that could be perceived as anti-black. Dr. Ben understood. And I just want to say, I want to just share a little excerpt from that speech he came out and gave. And you know, the little seeds that he dropped were so very important, because in order to be able to liberate or fight or struggle, you have to be able to conceptualize a self. I hadn't a clue as to what any of that was about. And to those of you who have read my book, Taking Another Look, or have heard me talk about pathological oppression, a main source of those seeds were planted by this man, so that I will say I will live and I don't want to die. Because he sent me on a major push toward a transition. You know, when he was talking about who would listen to me, I have this information, who's going to believe me? I understood. And when you talk about speaking your own language, I understand that too, in references to women, because once I understood I had a language and I had a right to speak it, I learned our word for creator was nushkanokas, which means my father and my mother. So I understand the danger in revealing, finding out something so very vital to one's life and wondering who's going to hear me. I'm going to share this little excerpt with you. He had come out to the African American Museum in Hempstead to just support us. We didn't really quite understand what we were, well, I'll say I will speak for myself because my elders understood it, who lived on that piece of land. See, and I didn't want to talk to you too much at first when we came in and I saw you, because I was going to tell and share it with everybody. The elders that he met who were having heart attacks and strokes from being misrepresented remembered him. And the words he came and shared, I didn't know how to properly greet him. I didn't understand I was an Algonquian woman. I didn't understand any of it. So 14 years later, here I am to properly present you with this blanket and a proper thank you. He said, if I say that I am surprised at what's going on, it would not be an understatement, it would be a lie. Something happened in the history of this land, and it happened in all the other lands in this part of the hemisphere. The unfortunate thing about it is that the people of African origin, who were brought over here like cattle, had to be a party to the genocide committed against a people. What's more important is that this genocide persists. Those from Africa, not understanding their own African background and the genocide committed against them, continue to participate in the genocide of their hosts. Let me be more explicit about it. Not too long ago, and it is coming soon, every February, when African people are given a week, and now I understand we're extended a month, of history acknowledgement, many of us speak proudly of the Buffalo Soldiers. It is one of the moments when I atone for the wrong deeds of black people. If we ever have things to atone for, this is one. The Buffalo Soldiers. I feel about the Buffalo Soldiers as I feel about Crispus Attucks. They ain't worth a damn thing. As a matter of fact, the Buffalo Soldiers was responsible to the extent of the European for the extermination of thousands of indigenous people. Now listen to this particular excerpt, is very important. I don't use the term Indian because they're in India. When I came to him for help, I said, Dr. Ben, my relatives were Indians. He said 5 words that I will never forget till the day I die to me. That's their word for you. I said, oh, there and you. There's a separation. There's a difference. And then came the beginnings of understanding self. I don't use the term Indian because they're in India, the indigenous people of the land, and I don't use Americans because they are not that. None of these people came from Amerigo Vespucci's ancestors. It's unfortunate that most of us, by virtue of time and education, I feel I should call it indoctrination, got the name that the imposed master imposed upon us. I think that the time has come when we must be clear, not only over opposition to the treatment, but opposition to the names given to us that don't represent us. He concluded this it's a life-saving presentation he gave and source of hope for so many of us. I don't feel that 1 square inch of Africa belongs to any European or Arab. When the last African dies, only then shall we give up the right to get back that last square inch of African land. And the last indigenous person has not yet died on this continent, in Canada or South America. And they cannot rest until the last piece of the last square inch of land or the last body and last breath of their people has been blown. Well, I mean, it took quite a mental turnaround. You talk about not being able to believe, to tell some of my people, we're not dead. Now that sounds difficult to conceive, but when people can stand along a graveside that the daughters of the American Revolution and the Christian clergy are proclaiming, here rests the last of the Matinicas, and the relatives are standing around the grave, appreciative. You're talking some deep pathology. That began my search inward. And as I began to discover that it was all right to be an Algonquian woman and not have to apologize no matter who was creating the violation, I have this undying gratitude, this undying feeling of life being saved and encouragement to go on, to know that I did the right thing when I had a son. He was at my son's naming ceremony, and I talk about this often to everyone. I gave out English translations to that naming ceremony so that people from my job and other places could understand. He said he didn't need it. He could follow what the medicine man was doing by virtue of the interaction. He didn't speak the, he did not have to be an expert in the history of Algonquian people. What is he? He is a traditional man. You know, when Mr. Harris talked about honorable people or anybody who stands in the way of the progression of Africa, I understand, to me, those traditional people fight for sovereignty and life for everyone unconditionally. That means that even if he sees something going wrong, such as a slave landmark going where it doesn't belong, he says so unapologetically, unafraid, and does not care what anybody, because the core, and I understand, when you see the source of truth, it hits you and it cannot leave and nobody can ever change it. And with that, away from the podium. Just a step. I didn't know 14 years ago how to say thank you to you. But I present you this blanket. You have given me so much inspiration and so much courage. I only hope to have the rest of it and your energy for what must be done now. And those of us from other islands, indigenous to other islands, know that shells are big, big things with us, better than diamonds. I have in this collection here that I have packed up for Dr. Ben some newspaper articles. He didn't even have to understand what they were saying about us. He didn't have to know any of it. He knew exactly what was happening. But I got a gathering of those things for you. I got a gathering of photographs of my elders who are dead now, who have not had the chance and opportunity to thank you. And some other things in here for you, including the picture of the relative who made this. And I want you to have this. And you see, he was talking about sexuality, and I've heard a lot of people say that they feel offended by the references that he makes. But people who are not mad at sex, people who are not mad at life, understand what he is saying. Once I understood that my indigenous heritage, which has nothing to do with India or any other such name brought over here on any boat with the smallpox blankets or apple pie or any of that stuff, then I knew I had it too. And you know, you find the traditional people don't have trouble communicating. Traditional people express the same values. So once I got it together, it's all right, Asiba, you're really here. We're not imagining our existence. That, in the season of the first plantings, we teach our children about sexuality. The boys, they open up the earth. The girls, they put in the seeds. They cover the earth, and the boys water. Mother Earth nurtures the seed. Father Sky rains on her. And all of this is learned in front of their family. You know, there's no need to look at any disgusting magazines or do any stupid kind of talking, because there's a real conceptual value, nothing to be ashamed of or hide behind. So in the traditional spring planting, the children, my children, planted, and every time I see this man, I bring the kids in front of him, that man held you, my son. The fruits and vegetables, the vegetables that they planted, this is Nanawa, it's Thanksgiving. This is the real Thanksgiving during the month of October in our harvest. The children see that if they plant seeds, good seeds, they will have harvest. So many lessons are told around that. This is from their garden that they planted like traditional Algonquian children, and we gather for the harvest in the season of Thanksgiving. Wanitakwunk, that is a greeting for the fall. It is Nanawa. This is for you. The children have preserved some peppers and things in here. We have the squash and some sprigs of sassafras from Shinnecock for you to have as some tea for you and your wonderful wife. And I hope that no matter what you hear in the news, no matter what you hear from wherever else, from whatever riffraff may have whatever bullying license or methods to do so, yeah, it's going to get even rougher because we're getting very close. But you know, I never felt more right about taking my children out of school altogether. I'm teaching them myself at home. But you know what that means too? I bring them to listen. I have sources of information from this man and from Dr. Jeffries and from people who write Latino papers, everything. That's where they're getting their education from. And also to know that they are okay and that they are really here. Their identity is not imagined. It is real, and they are good. And I never felt more correct about doing anything. I want to thank you. He was at my baby infant son's naming ceremony. When he comes to my son's honoring ceremony, this is how long it's been, because he will be a man. We are going to stand him up to be a man, and we will properly sash you and offer the things that you are due. When my son, and you will see him again, you held him in your arms as a little baby, he is now going to be stood up as a man. And I thank you for what you have given me that forced me in that direction, that said, you will do this or die. It doesn't matter if nobody understands what you're saying, you're going to do it. Thank you. Keep living.
I had the distinct privilege of sitting in Long Island. I don't recall that area, what they call it, but at the long table when all the heads of the indigenous people, state of the indigenous people, the nations came for that grand meeting one Sunday afternoon, Saturday and Sunday. And it was a beautiful day because I was teaching at Pace College, which is now Pace University, to the Long Island campus. And one of the princesses was going there to school at the same time. And we would sit and speak and compare cultural notes. And I was so surprised of the many customs that were exactly the same as my people in the northeast part of Ethiopia. And as she said, since we were both living to the earth and with the earth, the soil, it seems as if soil people everywhere had a common language. Truly, I didn't know how much it must have meant. I spoke from the heart, as they say, and I'm glad now that this is here. So Gertrude, those Sundays I wasn't seeing what's her name. I was out there taking care of business. Thank you.